Now let us start by reading in this dataset of billionaires. So we're going to read this dataset of billionaires. So let us look at some of these columns that we have. Okay, so we can see we have industry, we have the age, the rank. So it's already in the order of who has the highest net worth. So if we proceed, let us first look here if we are going to have an issue of the missing values. So if we come in here, so we see we do not have that issue of the missing values. Now let us look at the structure of this data set. So if we look at the structure of this data set, so if we come in here and we look at the columns, for example, like age here is being stored as character. Okay, and then also we have the net worth. So we want to focus on this column for now of net worth. So you can see that is stored as character. So for the analysis, so we want to be able to convert the type of this column, which is net worth. So how can we do that? So what we're going to do is we're going to import this. We are going to attach this package tidyr because we want to make use of certain functions. So now let's say these functions that you're going to use, they use regular expressions. So now let's say you have 177 and you have b here. So you have name, right? So this is a way in which that column or the values in that column of net worth are stored. What we want to do first is we want to remove this $sign and remove this b and be able to make this to be numeric because net worth is of course in numbers. So in order to do that, there's this function called gsub. Okay, so if we come in here and we say gsub, okay, and we use regular expressions, so we want to say for these two symbols that are stored in this variable, so we want to remove those with an empty space. Okay, we also have to pass in the name of this string. Okay, so this is a function that we are using gsub. So if we come in here and say name, you can see it has removed the $sign and the b. Okay, and now what remains is for us to convert this to be numeric. And in order to do that, we're going to say as dot numeric and we pass in name. And if now you observe here is that this will convert this to be numeric. So that is the analysis that we want to do in that column of net worth. Okay, so we can also come in here and say, for example, we want to just have all of those steps in one line. So in order to do that, we can say now name and we say as dot numeric. Okay, and then we say gsub, and now we pass in the strings that we want to remove and we pass in name. So we can also use this function inside this other function and simply just have all of these in one line. And you can see you can just call name. So now it's stored as 177, which is numeric. So that is the exact same thing that you want to do to the column of net worth in billionaires dataset. So what we want to do is we want to come in here and we want this net worth column and we want to say as dot numeric, and what we want to do is we're going to say gsub and we want to remove the $sign as well as that B. And now if we come in here, we're gonna say billionaires, and now we're gonna say net worth. So that is how you can convert that column and try to also retrieve or remove these two characters. And if you run this, now when you look at the head of this data set, okay, and now you come here to net worth, so you observe now that it has removed the $sign as well as B, and it has converted this into being numeric. So if you come in here and look at the structure again, so you can see here it's now numeric. So that is was just a way in which we can try to do the analysis. But now let's say we want to focus on the top 10 billionaires. So we're going to create this new data set and say top 10, and we want to say billionaires. And now, so don't mind my spelling, sometimes I'm making errors with the spelling. So this is supposed to be top 10 billionaires, and we are going to simply just say we want. Remember that this data set is already in order of the net worth, so we know who is the richest. So we first the first 10, and we can look at these top 10 billionaires, and we can see here we have Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Arnold. So this list is based on 2019, so it has changed a little bit. So what we want to do here is we want to have a visualization of the richest billionaires by their net worth. So in this case, we're going to say top 10 billionaires, and now we want to look according to their net worth. And we're going to say the names, and we pass in the names column. Okay, and if you run this, now you can see it also not fitting very well, the names, which means we have to try and change this here. Now let's try to change the orientation of these labels. So in order to do that, remember we come in here and we use this argument and we set it to 2. So now you can see that we have managed to change the orientation of these labels. So what we can also do in this case is to also use the par function in order to try and create the margin size. When it comes to setting the margin size, remember we use this function. So this will depend on how you have visualized this on your own computer. But these values, you can change them and just play around with the values until you are able to visualize and have these axes labels displayed well. Okay, so we also after setting the margin size, we also want to be able to plot this. Okay, so you can also come in here and say, for example, we use 12, and let us create this barplot. So you can see we are simply just changing the margin size. So here is at the bottom. So this is what we need to mostly focus on. What we also want to do is we want to set the random colors. So I'm going to create this new variable, which is colors. So we're going to use this random color, and we're going to say we want, remember we are talking about the top 10, and I'm going to set the hue. Let's say we use green in this part. So we're simply just creating random colors so that we're able to customize these bar charts. And if we now come in here and say we want to set the color based on colors, remember we also have to set out the legend. So in order to do that, I'm also going to add a little bit of space between the bars, let's say 0.3, And now we are ready to add in the legend, and we're gonna say top 10 billionaires, and on that legend is we want to have the name, and following is we want to say arguments of this legend. We want to be able to control the size, and let's say we say 0.75, and the position of this legend, let's say top right. Okay, so these are the arguments that are used to control the size of the text inside this legend as well as the position. So we have to say arguments.legend. So we come here and we also add legend.text. So just to specify that we want the name. So let's run this. Now if we come in here in this, so you can see that we now have added the colors. We also added the spacing. We are able to see that, okay, for the corresponding color, which who is the corresponding billionaire by the net worth. So you can see here, so this was the year when Jeff Bezos was the richest man on Forbes list. So that is how you can simply just play around and try to have a visualization using a bar plot of the billionaires by their net worth.